Hey, Steve here. This is an introduction to HTML5 games development. Now just going to start off with a PHP file. Now just start off with the normal HTML tags, HTML, body and head. Now the first thing that you do is make the canvas element, which is this right here, and you set the ID to whatever you want. I just put canvas, simple enough. Just made a width and height of 500, and I just made the background grey. Now this text in the middle is displayed when the browser doesn't support canvas, so it just tells the users who don't have a compatible browser what's going on. So you could also say something like download Firefox 4 or something, whatever, doesn't matter. As a recommendation, doesn't really matter. And by the way, it would be 3 also works. Firefox 3 works, latest Opera versions work, Google Chrome works, and Internet Explorer 9 works, although there's slight compatibility problems with some things, and Safari works. So now you need to do this script, because believe it or not, this is the only HTML part of a HTML game. The rest is in JavaScript by accessing the Canvas API. So you're going to want a normal game loop, which starts off by being initialized on the Windows load. So it calls this function onload. It does this. But first you need to make these variables. So in fact, let me just explain these three. The frames per second, it's just easier to make a variable so you know what's going on. I just did 30. The canvas, this is for calling the canvas element, and context 2D, that's for accessing the Canvas API for the 2D graphics. And in this function, it gets the canvas element and starts the context object. Now the rest of the game loop involves calling a draw function at a rate set by the frames per second. So it calls the draw function, which comes to here. So this means that it calls the draw function 30 times every second, and it does this 30 times every second. So what it first does is calls the update function, and what it does in here is alters the variables, all the variables that will affect what happens in the draw function. So all this comes down to setting the player's position, and here it draws the image based on the player's position. But first it needs to clear the screen before drawing, or else it will just be a big smudge of weirdness. So to draw the image, it needs to have the image object started and set the source to the URL of the image, or if it was in the right relative folder you could just have something like that, but in this case it doesn't. And we've got the player position and velocity variables set here, initialized. And now this is for the user input. This is event listeners, where it constantly listens for an event happening, and in this case it's the key down event and the key up event, and it calls the key down function and the key up function. And here's the functions here, and what happens is it goes into the keys array, sets the key code that was pressed, which is passed in through that parameter via the event listener, and it sets it to true, and when you let go of the key it sets it to false. So that means that in the update function right here, when the A key or the left arrow key is pressed, it does that, which is make it move left. So, and here's the main bit, right? That's for the A key. The A key has a key code of 37, so it looks in the keys array to see if 37 is in the array, and if it's set set to true, in which case it moves left. It sets the velocity to 2 less than it was, and it does this every frame that the button's pressed. Now this is just for slowing the character down, so that when you let go of the key the character comes to a slow. It slows down to a halt. And this is so that in fact, yes, this is for gravity. If the player is lower than the bottom of the canvas, then it stops, and it sets the Y position to the bottom. If it isn't at the bottom, then it's falling down. That's the player vel Y, making the player fall down, and that's acceleration, because every frame the speed goes up by 2, and this is where it sets the player's position by looking at the velocity variables. So that pretty much explains that, and using that knowledge you're able to make any simple game, just if you're able to figure it out. So I'll click save here and let you have a look at the result. There you go, did you see that gravity? And that's me pressing left and right. Don't mind the jumpiness, it's just a laggy computer. There, I'll press refresh again. There you go. And I'll put the source code on my blog, and I'll link it in the description of the YouTube video so you can find it. And that's about it. So I'll see you later. Goodbye.